All right, welcome back to the North Star Takes podcast, your one-stop shop for Minnesota sports content and takes. Bailey Pulicki and Jacob Liberta back with you here. You can find any of our videos on YouTube at North Star Takes podcast. You can find the audio versions in the link below. We have Spotify, Google Play, and an RSS link as well. And you can also follow us on Instagram at North Star Takes podcast as well. So the first segment today we're going to get into talking about the Minnesota Twins. This last week, clearly not a great week for the team. Their current record is 11-19, and they just lost 3 of 4 to the Texas Rangers as we're recording this on a Friday here on May 7th. So, and they're playing Detroit tonight. They just gave up a 3-run bomb, so Detroit brought it within a run to make it 4-3. So there's all sorts of issues with this team right now. So many guys are hurt. The bullpen is just atrocious.
It's a disaster.
I don't want to declare the season over, but things are not looking well right now.
No, I'd have to agree with you. I know a couple weeks ago I told our listeners that we were still fine. We just had to kind of wait for things to play out. We'd kind of pick up the season as far as like we're just really cold. But the problem is we've continued this poor streak that we've been on.
Yep.
And now I gotta say that I'm worried now. We've played 30 games. We've made it to the first week of May, and we're still playing bad baseball.
What about your personal guarantee from a couple weeks ago?
My personal guarantee feels like it's in a little bit of hot water, so that's not great, especially coming off today, getting the Byron Buxton news that he's going to be out weeks now with this hip flexor strain. So it scares me quite a bit because he was playing at an MVP level, and this guy has been everything for this team. Any success we've had has been revolved around him, or you got Cruz and Donaldson and whatnot, but Buxton's been like front and center. He was the AL Player of the Month in April, even though we were just terrible. And so this is a big gash to a team that's already struggling. So like I really don't have words for it at this point as far as like,
it is shocking. It's totally shocking. No one was expecting this.
Exactly. I know we had such high expectations coming into the season, and it's just to have Bucks go on the IL, but like we were talking before we started to shoot this, we were saying all the Twins, they got so many guys on the injured list or have come and gone on the injured list this season. I mean, almost every starter we've had besides like Polanco and Cruz, you think about it, over the last few weeks, they've all had at least one stint on the injured list, which kind of makes you think if there's something wrong structurally with the Twins.
Right.
So that could be worth exploring and diving into, but for sure, Buxton and just this Buxton going out just makes this outlook look even worse, and yeah, it makes me a little fearful what's to come. I don't know. How you feeling this far in the season?
Yeah, I'm not very confident. I mean, they were the Bomba squad 2 years ago. They led the MLB in home runs. They still have the all-time record for home runs in a season, which granted last year was a COVID-shortened season, so it wasn't like a true, full season. But this team is just a shell of what it was 2 years ago, and it's basically the exact same team. They added Josh Donaldson, who's a Gold Glove, former MVP third baseman. Granted, he's up there in age now.
Yep.
But when he's been healthy, he's been good. So it's not like he's, playing poorly and dragging the team down. Mm-hmm. But like we talked about last week, it's the core guys like Polanco and Kepler and Sano. They've really been struggling. And these are guys that are young and in their prime that have regressed majorly over the last 2 seasons. And, I mean, it's possible that 2019 was just the perfect storm where all these guys came together and had career years, Mitch Garver included, and maybe they're just not actually as good as what 2019 was.
Yeah.
So it sucks that all of it's hitting at once, and like you mentioned, all the injuries. It's hard for them to get in any sort of a rhythm when they're spending time on the IL. I mean, it's only been a month, and they haven't really been able to play like a solid stretch of baseball here. The weather's also been crappy when they've been home. It's been cold and rainy, and so all that stuff factors in as well. But I do like your point about, is there something going on with the team structurally? Like, why are all these guys getting hurt, So it's something to think about. Rocco's a pretty hands-off coach. He kind of lets these guys do what they want. He puts the responsibility on the players to get themselves ready for the games. Exactly. And I'm almost wondering if it's too lax, and he needs to start, taking control a little bit more and saying, all right, here's what we need to do. We need to be more structured. We need guys working out all the time, staying in shape, stuff like that. Because a guy like Buxton, clearly he's in peak physical shape. He's super fast. He looks very strong. Like, he put on more muscle this year. So I don't know what his deal is. I mean, it seems like he always comes up with a new injury to have. So it's like, I don't know if he's overexerting his body or what the deal is, but it's very strange. And we've talked about this before too, but it's baseball. Like how do so many guys get hurt playing baseball? The Vikings had injury issues this last fall, but most of their main guys still were playing. I mean, it's football even. A guy like Dalvin Cook who has some injury history, he still played
That's
the
true.
majority of the season. So
That's very
and they're
true.
playing a way more aggressive game. So I don't know. I don't really know what the deal is with that, but I guess what are your thoughts when it comes to the injuries?
Yeah, the injuries, I have to agree with you. I feel like there's got to be something wrong as far as what we're doing here, because I can't think bad luck would take us that far where it's just literally everybody in our lineup's going to get hurt. I feel like it can't be each of these guys just has horrible luck or just is bad at what they do or taking care of themselves. I feel like it's got to be something we do as like team training or something, I'd say. But obviously it's hard to pinpoint. And like you said, it doesn't make sense for baseball. Like I get a baseball season as a grind. It's a 162 game season. But the thing is, we're a month into the season. And we played 30 games. So I don't know why all these guys are dropping like flies and end up on the injured list. So that's kind of puzzling to me. And like you said, when you compare it to like a team like the Vikings in a different league, obviously it's two different games where you're just it's more dangerous than playing football. So
For sure.
baseball, it's really hard to put a finger on it. But you just hope that it just gets better as the season goes on. Guys maybe get more into it or something. But it doesn't look great for us. But then, yeah, as far as those guys, they get on the injury list all the time. But you look around the league, and even teams like the Yankees have this problem. But then I remember it was before the last season, the Yankees actually fired their training staff because too many guys were getting hurt. So they're like,
Oh, really?
we must be doing something wrong here. So then they brought in a new staff. But it's improved their situation a little bit, but not like I don't like as much as they would have hoped. So it's hard to put an explanation on it. I don't think there is one simple answer for it either. I feel like it's a really gray area, but we got to be able to stay on the field. So if we're going to have any sort of success and start stringing together wins to dig ourselves out of this hole, because I mean, right now we like we pointed out at the beginning, we're 11-19. We're just playing bad baseball. We're 0-7 in extra inning games.
Yep, which is just fluky, but at the same time, it's like, all right, it's something going on here, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And that's been the story of the season, almost at least one of them, that we just can't hang on to games at the end. We actually have led, I think, a decent amount of games going into like the 7th, 8th, 9th inning. But our bullpen comes in and blows it. They've allowed, as of today, they've allowed 19 home runs, which is the second most by bullpens in baseball.
Well, make it 20 because Cody Stashak gave up a bomb tonight.
That's right. Yeah. So now it's 20, and that's terrible. We can't have that. That's not a winning recipe. So that's another problem. And then the fact that I heard on the radio broadcast the other day that the Twins have scored 3 or less runs in 18 to 30 games, so it almost feels like it's really feast or famine for this team. So we got to have more consistency in the lineup too. So there's a lot of things to dissect here. But what would you say is the biggest problem with the Twins right now, though?
I would say the biggest problem is they can't seem to get the pitching and the hitting to line up at the same time. You know, we had that game against Oakland where we had that offensive explosion and we scored 12 runs. Well, we lost 13-12.
Yeah,
and terrible. Then in these games where we're scoring 3 runs or less, the pitching's usually doing pretty well, but the bats can't keep us in the game. So it's just kind of that weird dynamic where, you know, the bats aren't, you know, going at the same time as the pitching. And I don't know. They need to figure it out in a hurry because I don't know. It's starting getting close to mid-May, and I mean they're not super far back, and they do have time to make up ground. But with all these guys hurt, I don't see them going on any sort of a run here anytime soon.
No.
So, do you think it's possible if say they're still struggling, they're below 500 as the trade deadline approaches? Do you think it's possible they could ship off some of these veterans?
I think it's very possible if we're falling far enough out of the playoff race where it's like the season isn't going anywhere. I think anybody on an expiring contract is probably on the block, and depending on the offer that the Twins get, they're probably open to listening to it, because it depends what direction we think this team is going in. If we're trying to maybe keep guys around, hope for them to re-sign after this season, take another stab at it next year, or maybe the front office got a different vision that maybe not a lot of people know about.
Right.
And like you said, and I think any team, I suppose, when you're not really in contention by the All-Star break or shortly thereafter, then you're probably exploring trading guys on expiring contracts, seeing what you can get so then you can reload for future seasons. So I think it's definitely a real possibility. I know it'd be it'd be pretty sad for Twins fans to lose the likes of like Nelson Cruz, and then
That'd be a huge bummer.
exactly, because he's been the face of this team honestly the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Ever since the Bomba squad became a thing, he was front and center of it. So
Exactly.
that would hurt quite a bit, but I would get it. I mean, you almost should if we're not going to be in contention at the All-Star break. So
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's a big thing. I mean, as painful as it would be, I think it's probably the right move. But I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there. See how we're doing another month from now. Hopefully, we're doing better than we are right now. I feel like we can't get any worse.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So, going back to the pitching here a little bit, Berrios, Pineda, and Happ, they've all been decent. None of them have been fantastic by any means.
Yep.
Maeda's been off to a rough start compared to how good he was last year, finishing second in Cy Young voting. And Matt Shoemaker has been mostly horrible. I mean, we knew when we signed him that he wasn't going to be a great fifth starter option, and we were kind of thinking maybe Dobnak would take his job at some point, which Dobnak's been horrible again this year, or been horrible this year too.
He's been bad too.
And so I think they sent him down to AAA. So the starting pitching's rough, and obviously the bullpen is terrible. So do you trust any of our starting pitching, and do you trust anybody in the bullpen?
At this point, I still trust Maeda, Berrios, and Pineda. I know Maeda has had a tough season. He certainly hasn't had his best stuff, especially compared to last year when he had a career year. But I still trust him. He's a veteran pitcher. He's been in the league for a while, and he's never really been that bad. So I think now we're just kind of hitting a low point of his time in his big league career, and I think he'll bounce back. But as for a guy like Shoemaker, he's kind of been a journeyman. I don't know how much improvement we can really expect, which is kind of unfortunate, but
Yeah.
it kind of just is what it is. He was a cheap veteran, I guess. So I mean, you get what you get. But as far as other guys in rotation, like Happ, I think can still be a mixed bag. I think he can be good, but he can also lean more towards Shoemaker too, where it's just these veteran signings that might or might not turn out for you.
Yeah.
But Berrios and Pineda, I think, are pretty solid. Berrios, he's been pretty consistent as far as his production goes the last couple of years. He's been pretty consistently around 3.5 or 4 ERA, but I think there's probably another level to him that we'd like him to reach, but he's at least got a pretty safe floor, it feels like.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I think he'll be fine. And then Pineda, I think he'll go out there and do a lot of soft contact, and he'll get a lot of guys out, and he won't strike out a ton of guys, but
He's usually good for about 6 innings.
Exactly, yeah. 6 innings. He'll usually have a quality start, probably 2 out of every 3 times he's out there, which I think that's really all I can ask for from a number 3 pitcher, as he is. So, as far as trusting guys in rotation, I still trust our top 3. And it's kind of weird. Happ is approaching that, but I still feel like we've only played a month. Let's see what happens. But and in the bullpen, I still trust Rogers. I like him a lot.
You are a Rogers guy.
I'm a big Rogers guy, and I have been for a couple of years now. And I think he just allowed his first earned runs of the year this past week, so I think that's significant. But I know sometimes it can look a little rocky, but I know for sure he's at least going to come in and get left-handed batters out for the most part, because career-wise he's very good against left-handed batters. But that's a problem in our bullpen, is I don't trust any other left-handed arms we have there. I don't like Thielbar. I don't like Waddell when we have him.
Waddell's not a major league pitcher.
And then honestly, I can't even think of any other left-handers we got besides Happ in the rotation. But
yeah, I don't think we have any. Do we?
Not that I can think of, no. But so yeah, that's a huge problem. And then as far as right-handers, I still trust Duffy. I still think he's a good arm out of the pen, and he can still get it done. But as far as everybody else, Robles can be hit or miss. I like his stuff. It just needs a little bit more fine-tuned. Alcala, he's nice too. But outside of everybody else, Stashak, nah, that's not it. And that ball rounds it out, I suppose. But I don't know. Who do you trust in this rotation? I don't want to ramble on too long here, but
in the rotation or the bullpen?
Let's say both. Yeah.
Okay, rotation, like you said, we kind of know what we're getting out of Berrios at this point. Maybe there's another level there for him to hit, but I think right now he's for sure a solid number 2 pitcher. I don't think he's ever going to become that ace that this team needs. And I don't know if they're ever going to be able to develop that ace. They might just have to go spend money to get one or make a trade.
Maybe.
So
unless you get lucky with like a Jordan Balasevic or Johan Duran or something.
Which that could happen, but the jury's still out on those guys, obviously.
Yeah, minor league pitching, you never know how to project it. Even when they're getting somewhat close to the big leagues, you never know what you're going to get. So
Maeda, even though he was great last year, I've always kind of seen him as like a good number 3 option. That's kind of what he was with the Dodgers. I think he was a 3 or 4 starting pitcher there.
Yeah, he was more towards the bottom of the rotation because whenever it got to the playoffs, they'd always move him to the bullpen, which I know he didn't like because as a starting pitcher, you like to be part of the rotation. So I know, but the Dodgers are also a different thing too because they have quite a deep rotation. They always have good pitching, so that was a little bit different. So I'd say, like you said, I'd agree that he's probably more of a middle of the rotation guy.
And I like Pineda too. I think Pineda's a solid, number 3, 4 guy. I feel like Pineda and Maeda are both number 3 starting pitchers. So we kind of have 2 number 3s, but we don't have a number 1.
Mm-hmm.
And then Happ is more like a number 5, but he's our number 4.
Yeah.
And then you got Shoemaker, who I don't think should even be on an MLB roster. So I mean, he's been so bad. So yeah, Barrios, Pineda, and Maeda, I trust for the most part. Maeda's had a rough start, but I think he'll be able to turn it around.
Yeah.
As for the bullpen, I've liked Taylor Rogers too, but over the last 2 years, he's just given up some solid contact. And in 2019, we were so used to him just coming in and mowing people down, 3 up, 3 down, just super easy innings.
Mm-hmm.
We're not getting that from him anymore. Tyler Duffy was dominant last year, and he's looked bad this year. And, I liked Duffy a lot last year, but it's tough to trust him right now. And obviously, the free agent addition of Alex Colomé has just been a complete bust so far.
Yeah, I forgot about Colomé because he hasn't been pitching in any significant situations lately because he was so bad early. But.
Yeah, he literally has one of the worst starts for a closer in MLB history. So Hansel Robles has been pretty decent, I think. I trust him. He's got good stuff. He throws hard.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a guy or 2 out there, but that's not enough to get, especially when you don't let your starters go more than 5 or 6 innings,
Yeah.
So
yeah, as Rocco likes to control his pitch counts, that kind of factors in too. You got to think about the depth of your bullpen and how many guys you really trust out there. And I don't like situations like we're ripping on Waddell. I don't like situations when we bring him in the 10th inning in the tie game. I don't really understand that.
No, that doesn't make any sense to me. So real quickly here before we kind of wrap up. So Alex Kirilloff was tearing it up before he got sidelined with a wrist injury, so he's going to be on the IL for a little bit.
One of the few bright spots of the season.
And now
of course now he's on the IL.
Yes, and now with Buxton joining him on the IL, they're calling up another top prospect, Trevor Larnach. So kind of what are your thoughts and what are your hopes for these 2 guys as the season progresses? Do you think they have a chance to solidify their roster spot for the future here?
Oh, absolutely. I think if Larnach comes out here as Buxton's on the IL, I think this is a great opportunity for him to prove himself, prove he's a big league outfielder, and honestly, he could probably firmly put himself in our big league roster, honestly, for the long term after this, as long as he plays pretty well, shows some promise, and that has good bats. I think that could be huge for his future here in this next month or 2. So I'm really excited about how he projects, being the former first-round pick from Oregon State, from a good baseball program like that, and then having him and Kirilloff, they've been our highly touted prospects along with Royce Lewis now for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they got a great chance here. It's probably the silver lining in all these IL visits for our team is that you're getting a good look at all these prospects, even like Nick Gordon yesterday. Mm-hmm. And I think I'm really excited about what the future brings for Kirilloff and Larnach. I think they could really replace some of our, so to speak, core guys that we could end up shipping out if these guys are playing well this year. So that's how I think about it. I don't know. How about you? What do you think about Larnach and Kirilloff and the prospects of this season?
Larnach intrigues me because I'm sick of seeing Jake Cave playing in the outfield. And I know we have other guys like Arias has been playing out there, and they have Garlick, but he's been kind of in and out because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Jake Cave always just seems to find his way into the lineup, and he's just been so unproductive when he's played. So Larnach intrigues me. I think, hopefully he can solidify that left field spot. What's interesting with Kirilloff is he's a good left fielder, but he's also a good first baseman. So if Sano can't figure it out here, I think Kirilloff could end up being the first baseman of the future, which makes a lot of sense because he's got a sweet swing. He's left-handed, hits the ball hard. He drives the ball out of the park. So
the dude just looks like a first baseman too.
And what's really too bad is that Royce Lewis isn't going to get a chance to prove himself this year because I think it would have happened if he didn't tear his ACL. So
that is unfortunate.
So that will do it for this segment about Minnesota Twins talk. If you're watching on YouTube, you can find our next video segment that'll be on the Minnesota Wild coming up here. If you're listening to the podcast version, we're just going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back to talk about the Minnesota Wild.